And in studio with me for a look at 7 trends you should be keeping your eye out on this year is David Silverstein. He's from BMGI. So good to have you with us in South Africa once again. Thanks for joining us. We've got 7 themes to go through, and I thought we could analyze them individually first. And the first one at the top of your list is the geopolitical risks that might be evolving across the globe. Why is this one that we need to monitor?
Well, I think especially for business, it's important to understand that this is the time of year, and the reason I chose to write this is the time of year where everybody's making their predictions for the future. Here's what the South African economy is going to do. Here's what the global economy is going to do. But we've proven over the last 7 years, since the beginning of the financial crisis, that we never get it right. The best minds in the world never get it right. And so rather than trying to forecast where things are going to go, what I'm trying to get people to do by writing about the trend towards greater and greater risk is to understand that we can't plan our businesses around specific predictions for the future. We have to know that there's many possible futures and be prepared for a portfolio of possibilities in the future. And that's a different way of thinking, as everybody looks to their experts to tell them what they should expect to happen this year.
One of those trends that we're seeing, especially on the African continent, has to do with cyber security and the threat that possesses, and the digital age, because that's something that's really streamlining and almost helping the continent leapfrog certain stages of development.
That's right. I think technology is still just at the base of that exponential growth curve everywhere in the world, but certainly here in Africa. You know, when you're on an exponential growth curve, in any short period of time, it looks like a very linear kind of thing to you. You don't realize how exponential the growth is when you're actually living through it. It's only when you go back and look through the lens of history that you say, wow, things were really changing fast. And you're right, so cybersecurity is one that got a lot of attention in this last year because there were so many attacks against it. And they're coming from nation states, and they're coming from gangs, cyber gangs, and that type of thing. And you know, success breeds success. And so it's just cyber attacks, cyber crime, it's a business. And so when you see the success that so many have had, there was the case not too long ago, we were talking about $1 billion having been stolen from a number of different banks, right? You read about that one. Well, that's just what happens when a market is good, when an industry is good. It invites new entrants into the market. The same thing is happening with cybercrime, because there's been so much success out there, it's inviting new entrants into the market. And then we also have a whole generation of folks now coming of age that have grown up in the internet age. And so if you go back 15 years when the internet was new, there wasn't a whole lot of people out there with the skills to become cyber criminals. So the opportunity is there, the skill base is growing. So absolutely, that is something that has to be watched. It's an opportunity as well, because everywhere there's crime, there needs to be crime prevention. So the cybersecurity prevents great new business opportunities as well.
Exactly. Looking at the list, I think it was number 5 that pointed out to health and wellness. And I looked at this and I thought, interesting, because at many times businesses don't often think that way, even though we do understand that it is a mindset change, and it is shifting in many parts of the world. How important is this to monitor? Quality of life, clearly.
Yeah, so I think on 2 different fronts. One is the health and wellness of our workers, but also the way it's going to change consumer behavior in the future. You know, I remember when I was a kid, I'm not sure that you can remember back this far, eggs were bad for us. Now eggs are good for us again. There was a time when caffeine was something really to be avoided. Now there's all kinds of advantages to caffeine. Coffee's got a great source of antioxidants. It's good for us. It used to be bad for us. And so there's a lot of new research in just the last few years that is changing a lot of what we know about things. So for example, the idea that fats and cholesterol is really, really bad for you, that's being debunked by a lot of research. And most importantly, there's been a lot of new research on how nutrition affects the brain. We all know when it hits our waistline, we look in the mirror, we want to go on a diet, and we want to fix it. But the effects it has on our brain are effects we might not see for 10 or 20 or 30 years. So when we start to learn about the effect what we're eating today might have on our brain 20 years from now, 30 years from now, how it might lead to Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, that's really starting to change people's behaviors. So we're seeing a lot of the new research come out now, but over the next few years, I think you're going to really start to see people changing their behavior about diet because of the way it affects their brain and their body. That's going to drive changes in consumerism. It's going to drive changes in agriculture, ultimately, in terms of what we grow, what people eat.
True.
So yeah, so I think that we're only going to see more and more development in health and wellness as new research kind of hits the street.
Well, there are many other things that you've listed here on this list as well as changes in potential guards. But what I want to get at is You've obviously compiled this for individuals and businesses to look at and observe and realign their strategies to over the 2015 year. As an outsider looking in and coming to South Africa, are you seeing that the corporate sector and individual South Africans that you interact with are actually paying attention to some of these trends?
Yeah, I think at an individual level, the answer is yes. But ultimately, one of the trends I talked about on here was a trend towards more and more economic surprises. And I think in South Africa, ultimately, everything is driven by the economy. So today I was over at the Ministry of Health here in Gauteng, and we were talking about the challenges of providing more and more health care to the population. Whether or not you can is all driven by the economy. The power outages and the shortage of electrical generating, that's both an economic problem and it's created by a lack of the economic resources to build. So I think at an individual and business level, yes, but I think at a collective level, at the level of the government, everything's got to be about the economy the next few years in 2015. The political challenges, nobody would be, there wouldn't be talk of a no confidence vote against your president if there weren't economic challenges right now. Economics is the root of all evil.
Exactly. Economics, the root of all evil. On that note, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
That was David Silverstein, who is the CEO of BMGI.